Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen, and today I'll be reading chapter 3 of Seen and Not Heard by LitaCakes. This chapter has no trigger warning, so it's just a little wholesome Izuku time. Anyway, make sure to take care of yourself and let's get right into the fic. Chapter 3. Izuku is out on patrol, crouching in a dark corner of a roof where he could easily duck away into an alleyway if necessary, or back into the shadows where no one could see him. He'd been out since 9 and it was going on 11 with no sight of criminal activity. Maybe criminals and villains were taking the weekdays off, started taking the weekdays off. Izuku doubted that, but that would be the only reason to explain why I was so dead on the streets of a random Thursday evening. Settling down into a pencil stick, that classic Japanese sit. I don't know how to pronounce it, so just bear with me. Izuku took a granola bar from one of his many pockets and broke a piece off. He learned years ago how to eat without taking off his mask. It wasn't ideal. He had to shove his fingers up under it, but it worked well enough for non-messy foods. He rarely ate anything in public that might be too messy or hard to shove under his mask. He still wore his thin neck sleeve that Inko had bought him not long after the initial injury. It covered his neck up to his chin and the lower half of the scarf, and kept the lower half of the scar hidden. The upper tips of Hisashi's fingers didn't peek over the mask, thankfully. The pinky finger and the ring finger covered half of his mouth, while the rest of the fingers on the scar were across his cheek. When he was done with the granola bar, he traced his fingers around the scar. The shape was literally burned into his mind. For some reason, tracing the scar calmed him. It distracted him from the present. It distracted his thoughts from the present. Normally, he'd never allow himself to get distracted while on patrol, but today was a quiet evening and he could afford to relax, or so he thought. Please step back from the ledge. The voice was deep and raspy. It sounded worried. Izuku blinked back to reality. He was just sitting on the edge of a roof in the pretzel position. Pretzel, that's the best you're going to get from me. With one hand under his mask. It was quickly removed when he realized someone was behind him, and he hadn't heard them approach. That was never a good sign. How did someone sneak up on him? Izuku rolled backwards and popped up on the balls of his feet in a defensive stand. What he found made his heart almost stop in his chest. Eraserhead was standing across the roof, one hand held in a placating manner, and the other on his capture scarf. Why was he here? This wasn't Eraserhead's usual turf. Izuku made sure to not go on patrol so he wouldn't accidentally get caught by the underground hero. Hell, he tried keeping a strong line between his analyst self and his literal vigilante self. Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat, trying hard to figure out how he would get out here without Eraserhead putting too many puzzle pieces together. Are you okay? Eraserhead asked. Izuku tilted his head. Did he think... Oh. Eraserhead thought he was going to jump. Well, that might be... Maybe the Izuku from a few years ago might have considered it, but Izuku today wouldn't even daydream about that kind of thing. He had too much to do, too many people to protect now. Izuku finally nodded in response to Eraserhead's question. Can I ask what you're doing up here? He knew it was a pretext for seeing if Izuku needed help, but he wasn't up there for the reasons Eraserhead thought so. So, Izuku shook his head and turned on his heel. He knew Eraserhead was a pro, but Izuku was quick and light on his feet. Years of running and hiding and professional training had kept him fast and limber. He had scars to prove how many times he'd fallen off of these very rooftops before he'd gotten proficient at running them. Hey, wait, don't. Izuku bolted across the rooftops, reaching into one of his pockets he pulled out the familiar disc, tapping it twice so it extended into a bat. He used it to grab onto the wires like a zipline, giving him more distance between him and Eraserhead. Thankfully, it was dark enough that he didn't need to worry about the hero seeing the kanji sprawled across his bat in spray paint. It only took 10 or 15 minutes to lose Eraserhead on the roof tops and then down into the alleyways, but that was far too long. He knew he had to get faster if he wanted to stay out of the underground hero's line of sight next time. Next time, Eraserhead wouldn't think he's just some guy about to jump off a roof. Next time, he might realize exactly who Izuku was, and therein lies the problem. If Eraserhead found out Kyoshi was a vigilante, then he could kiss his analyst career goodbye, and his main source of income. Izuku decided that he would ask Mei to repaint his bat as soon as possible, just to be safe. Shota sighed deeply as he walked into the police station, rubbing his hand down his face in annoyance. Something didn't sit right about that whole scenario. Why was that guy on the roof? Why was he just casually sitting on the ledge like he was debating the whole world? But when Shota tried to interrupt, the guy acted like he was bringing up for a fight. He didn't speak, only answered with a nod or shake of the head, then sprinted across the roofs. That was probably the worst part. Shota realized this guy was trained, and trained well. He was gone within minutes, and Shota hadn't been able to keep up. Eraserhead, as a pro who never lost when it came to a battle of running and jumping across rooftops, he never met a match in his life. But this short guy, was somehow faster and more agile, I'm just going to say agile, along the concrete playground. What's got you in a slump? Tsukauchi leaned on the counter close between them, one eyebrow arched in genuine curiosity. I don't know, Suki. I saw this guy on the roof tonight. At first, I thought he was a jumper, but then I lost him. He ran across the roofs. Even pulled out a baseball bat from where I have no idea, and used it to zip line across the power lines. You, the great Eraserhead, lost the target. That doesn't sound like you. Wait, was this guy in all black with a face mask? Baseball bat that's green and silver? Yeah, how did you know? I think. It was dark. It didn't see the bat too well. How did you know? Shota pushed past the little door that led to the at the back of the precinct, so the back of the barrier, so Tsukauchi could lead him into his office. There's a speculation he's a new vigilante. You're the first person to actually see the guy. What does that mean? Well, the guy's incredibly selfie. I mean, like, more so than you. He almost never leaves the shadows when fighting, and no one ever sees him coming or going. Not even the civilians he saves. The most we've gotten is details about his black clothes and baseball bat, though one report said it has kanji on it. Tsukauchi rifled through the papers on his desk and pulled out a notepad, flipping through it, likely looking for the interview notes he was referencing a moment ago. Yeah, it said Kyoshi. The civilians said it was fitting. The guy was absolutely soundless. The mugger who had come after him hadn't even had a chance to react before he was tied up with a bat at his shoulders. The civilian only caught the kanji because of a streetlight nearby. Kyoshi, you're sure? Well, that's what the witness statement is. Why? You remember my quirk analyst friend? Of course, he's the guy that's been giving us major leads for years now. His name is Kyoshi. It's the only name he's ever been willing to give to me. I never understood why. Tsukauchi dropped his notepad. One hand came to his lips in thought. Shota lowered himself onto one of the chairs across from Suki's desk, trying to figure out if this was really the same guy. There were connections that made sense. After all, who Someone who would analyze quirks as fast and detailed as Kyoshi would make an amazing fighter and evader in battle. He'd know how to counter all manner of quirks without much effort. It would also explain why the guy had given Schroeder that name in the first place, if he was really a vigilante who attacked soundlessly. It makes sense, Suki finally said. Schroeder hummed in agreement. So you know what that means, right? Schroeder sighed. Yeah, we gotta bring him in. I can't even begin to imagine what this guy's quirk is, but judging from his analyst work, if the two were the same person, it's likely an IQ quirk. Well, that's good. Means he won't be getting into any serious criminal charges for being a vigilante. Maybe he'll just get some community service or parole instead of jail time. Schroeder still didn't like the idea. He wanted to reach out to Kyoshi, his analyst, before making a decision on bringing the supposed vigilante into the police. Izuku was panting by the time he reached his apartment. He hadn't stopped running in circles until he was sure he lost the race ahead. Leaning over his knees, Izuku caught his breath from the shadows of his fire escape. He never went in the front door when he came back from his patrols, always using his side window instead. As he clambered through his window, his phone buzzed in his pants pocket. Well, shit, who could that be? He only had two names on his phone, May and Racerhead. Izuku stumbled and rolled onto his back as realization hit him that Racerhead might have put the damn puzzle together already. He quickly checked his phone before even getting off the ground. Racerhead, you busy, Key? Shit. Izuku scrambled up from his spot on the ground and grabbed his laptop. Eraser likely saw that he read the message and needed to reply momentarily. But first, he launched a few programs on his laptop and let them run so he could track Eraserhead's phone and also pull up a few cameras from the Musatafi police precinct. Come on, there. Izuku pulled up Detective Tsukauchi's office. Eraserhead and Tsukauchi were sitting there chatting, Eraserhead with his phone in his hand. Double shit. They were trying to smoke him out. Of course, the detective had leads on a new vigilante in the area, but they should know it was Kyoshi, right? Unless one of the people he rescued had seen his bat and told them about the kanji. It was literally the only lead Tsukauchi could have. And of course Eraserhead knew what that name meant. Triple shit. Hey Eraser, what's up? Just working on a few programs and data entries. What do you need? The reply was almost immediate. Izuku watched Eraser type it out in real time on the camera. Eraserhead, I was just hoping we could finally meet. I have a complex case I need your help with. I know you work solo, but the detective that's on this case really wants to meet you. Security risks and all. He trusts me, but Kyoshi, he doesn't trust me. Eraserhead, yeah, you think you can spare a few minutes? I mean, I know this is a big step, but we've been working together for years now. Do you trust me? Izuku wanted to say yes. Holy hell did he want to say yes. He trusted Eraserhead. He really did. But right now, he knew if he went forward with this, he'd get caught. Then again, saying no would make things more complicated. Izuku had to make a decision here. A crossroad with left and right forks stood before him. Should he trust Eraserhead and turn himself in, or should he opt to say no and continue his vigilante work? In the first case, Izuku would likely be sent to jail and tormented for the quirkless runt he truly is. In the second, Izuku would lose Eraserhead's trust and also his income. But he might be able to stay out of jail at least for a little while. In the end, Izuku knew he couldn't run forever. If the police were already onto him, and now that Eraserhead and Tsukauchi put their heads together, There was no way Izuku was getting out of this unscathed or getting off scot-free. Izuku sighed and put his head in his hands. There was no easy way out of this. He was still technically in middle school. If he was caught, they'd send him back to Inca at the very least, or jail at the very worst. But if he packed up, found some nondescript place to live in, maybe a warehouse or something, he could hide from them all. He could continue to run and continue to protect the people like he wanted. Closing his laptop with a loud clap, Izuku flipped over to his text chat with May and hit the video chat option and waited for her to pick up. He knew she'd be awake even if it was only almost midnight. She never slept before 2 a.m. on weekdays and 4 a.m. on the weekends. May picked up after the second week. Izu, what's up? Are you okay? Did something happen on patrol? At some point, he had given up on denying he was a vigilante to May. She was too smart for her own good, and Izuku didn't like lying to her. He was already lying about his quirk, and that felt monumental, so he tried not to lie to her about anything else. Izuku set his phone down on the stand and signed to her. May, I ran into Eraserhead on patrol. He's now texting Kyoshi, asking me to come in and work on a case in person. I know it's a lie. I checked the security cameras in the police station. He's working with Tsukauchi. I know that detective is on my Vigilante case. With those two putting their heads together, I think they know Kyoshi the informant and Kyoshi the Vigilante are one of the same. I don't know what to do, May. If I accept and go in, they'll throw me in jail, but if I don't, I'll lose Eraserhead's trust and my only income. Whoa. Slow down, Izuku. I think I got the gist of that. Well, it kind of depends. I mean, just because you go by Kyoshi the informant doesn't mean you'll get caught out as a vigilante. What are the quirks we're working with here? Izuku thought it over and pulled out an older notebook from about a year ago when he heard something about through the grapevine that told him the police were starting to track his vigilante movements. Eraserhead, quirk erasure. He can temporarily turn off a person's quirk when looking at them with it active. He cannot affect mutant type quirks. Okay, well, here's not a concern for you. Izuku wasn't sure if that was because May believed he had an IQ quirk, which was a mutant type, or because she knew the truth about him being quirkless. That was a can of worms he wasn't planning on opening or asking about. Tsukauchi, Detective Tsukauchi, also known as True Man, quirk lie detector. He can tell what a person is lying when they speak. Then what are you worried about? What? Izuku. May shifted her phone so it was closer to her face. You're mute. You cannot lie. He cannot detect detect sign language, can he? Izuku leaned back, shocked to his core. May was right. He was panicking over practically nothing. Okay, well, that was bullshit. There was plenty to panic over, but being caught wasn't one of them. Well, now he has a new issue. If he did go as Kyoshi the informant, they'll probably realize he was a kid. That would prove interesting. He could lie his way out of that, sure, but he would probably put him on a serious watch list. Izu, hey, back to Earth, Star Child. May called. Izuku shook his head. Sorry, he signed, offering a frustrated grunt as well. Hey, it's okay. Do you want me to come with you? I could translate if you need to sign. Izuku shook his head. No, I don't want to give away that I can sign just yet. I can just type on the speech program and explain my medical bullshit, I guess. Are they going to buy that? Izuku blinked. What? Did you think I didn't know that lung disorder? What? You thought I didn't know that's no lung disorder you're hiding behind that mask? Come on, Izuku. We both know that's bullshit. I mean, I don't care. You're my best friend. You're also my best client. Don't sweat the small stuff. I don't care if you have a quirk or if you're actually sickly. You're just Izuku to me, okay? Izuku stared at the screen with confused eyes. No one had ever told him that his quirk didn't matter. That he was just Izuku. That he was enough, just like that. A smile cracked on his face, a genuine one. For probably the first time in years. He had to wipe a few stray tears from his face and nodded and signed a simple thank you to the best of his ability. No thanking me for common human decency. Just work your magic and get those jokers off your ass so I can make more gear for you. I'm almost done the latest modification to your guns. I'll also need to give your bat an upgrade too. It's been a year since the last model, and I have some new materials I want to try. I'll try to deliver both next weekend, okay? Sounds good. Thank you, May. She waved and hung up. Izuku took a deep and free breath. He could do this. May always knew exactly how to help him. Grabbing his phone off the stand, Izuku reopened the conversation with Eraserhead on his laptop. The two were sitting in the detective's office still. Eraser was staring at his phone in his lap, frustrated and concerned. Tsukauchi was working on some forms of some kind. I trust you. When and where? Eraserhead, are you free tonight? Musutafu Police Precinct. Kiyoshi, I'll be there in 45. I'm not close by right now. It was a ploy to make them think he wasn't really nearby. Sadly, his apartment was only a 10-minute walk from the police station, so he'd have some time to change out of his vigilante gear and put on some street clothes. He also opted to take a shower and put on a little makeup to cover the few freckles that showed up around his mask and forehead. Izuku picked out some plain black jeans and a white t-shirt with a black hoodie over the top. He swapped his vigilante mask for his everyday mask, which was well worn and a lighter green. The last thing he grabbed was his laptop bag with his laptop. After he closed all the programs he had running, and a notebook and a pen. Izuku arrived exactly 45 minutes after his text said he'd be there. He was pretty sure no one was expecting a 14-year-old kid to walk into the Musutafu police station, especially not one wearing heavily covering clothing and a face mask. However, it played into his persona anyway. He was a solo working informant and analyst, so he had to play up that angle that along with the medical bullshit Encoded enlisted in him years ago. How can I help you, boy? Izuku resisted the urge to wince. He hated that word. It sounded too much like Kizashi. Izuku tugged out a piece of paper he had written before he left the house. My name is Kiyoshi. I'm a quirk analyst working under Eraserhead. He requested a meeting at this station this evening. The police officer gave the note a curious look and frowned. He shot Izuku a glare and mumbled a soft, "Wait here," before heading back, likely to show the note to Eraserhead, or maybe the detective. As he waited, Izuku switched the stories up in his head a little. Maybe he could spin things around to be more believable regarding his mutism. If he added a dash of reality, they wouldn't be able to tell it was fake, so maybe he should do that. This way. The officer returned and ushered him beyond the little half door in the center of the counter. Izuku followed him into the back to the very office he'd been watching through the security cameras not even an hour ago. The police officer left him standing at the front door, so Izuku knocked. Come in, and an unfamiliar voice called. It wasn't Eraserhead, so he assumed it was Tsukauchi's. Izuku opened the door to face his doom. Bright green eyes flick across every surface, including a very tired-looking underground hero and an equally exhausted detective. Eraserhead was still wearing his capture scarf, Did he wear that when he was off duty all the time? His goggles were around his neck, but his feet were popped up onto Couchy's desk casually. He was relaxed, but he looked ready to pass out. So Couchy didn't look any better, actually. He was buried underneath piles of paper at his desk. Izuku could barely make out the man's head behind the computer screen and the adjacent piles of paperwork. It didn't look as bad from the upper angle of the camera. Izuku's eyes flipped to the camera for a moment, then back to Eraserhead. No one had spoken yet. Were they waiting for him to speak? Izuku took the initiative and set his laptop bag down next to the desk and flopped onto the chair next to Eraserhead. Kyoshi? The underground pro asked tentatively. Oh, did the police officer not tell them Izuku was a teenager? Probably thought it was funny and didn't. Izuku nodded as he took out his notepad and pen. Tsukauchi finally unburied himself from his desk, only to blink in confusion when he saw the teen spotted next to his co-worker. Izuku scrolled out a note on the first page and offered the message to Eraser, who read it out loud to Tsukauchi. Yes, I'm Kyoshi. I apologize for the unorthodox method of communication. I am mute. I have a lung condition that makes it breathing difficult without my filtering mask. When I was very young, a bad episode damaged my vocal cords. That's how I chose my analyst moniker. What's the case you need help with? Eraserhead and the detective shared a weird look. A look that Izuku knew that they were curious and also suspicious. They both likely knew that they were in a corner now and unable to get him to ask him any revealing questions. Well, they could, but they couldn't tell whether but it wouldn't give them anywhere as Tsukauchi couldn't use his quirk on a light to read Izuku's lies. Well, we need an analysis done on someone. The issue is there's no data on this person and we're not sure where to begin. He's a rising vigilante with no name. Hell, no one's even seen his face or knows much about him, other than a baseball bat when capturing villains and criminals. There's something about, what do you kids call it these days? Cryptic sightings of him floating around online, but that's not really helpful. Izuku watched the detective as he described the very person he was sitting in the room with. They wanted him to analyze himself? Wasn't this hilarious? Obviously, it was a ploy for him to crack, or maybe admit his own persona. But Izuku wasn't so easily broken. He has spent his entire childhood being broken over and over by the very people who brought him into the world. Every friend or loved one he had ever had left him for the simple circumstances of his quirk status. That could break someone, but this would be fun. Eraserhead handed him the file, watching him intensely for any sign of reaction. Izuku didn't let them see anything that they could use against him. All the years of hiding himself from Inka and Hisashi, was easy, even hiding in plain sight. Be seen and not heard. Better yet, be neither. The man's words drew to the sneer on his face, and he couldn't stop it from appearing. Thankfully, it didn't show from behind his mask. Izuku flipped the file to read what little they had on his vigilante persona. There, of course, was a description of his clothing, a blurry picture of him from a traffic camera, and the details about his bat. That's where Izuku stopped. The file listed the kanji and their meaning. What was the secondary test? Was this a secondary test? How best to respond to this? Twirling his pen between his fingers, Izuku decided to read over the rest of the file before reacting. He found himself a little more than he found little more than a list of criminals that his vigilante persona was responsible for bringing in, and a few villains listed as well. Once he was done, the file was snapped shut as he received his notebook and wrote out a note, which he then handed to Eraserhead. I'm curious why my analyst moniker, Monique, it's name. Just go with name from now on. I'm curious why my analyst's name happens to be sprawled across this vigilante's baseball bat. I have to wonder if there's a particular reason behind it. Maybe he's trying to send a message. A silent justice comes in the night. Of course, that had absolutely nothing to do with it. Izuku just wanted to trip them up a little, confuse them, and possibly push them in the wrong direction. Possibly, Eraserhead mused. Okay, are we finally going to address that elephant in the room? Tsukauchi finally spoke up again. Izuku tilted his head, silently asking what the detective meant. Oh, come on, you're clearly a teenager. You can't be more than 15. How does a kid become one of the best quirk analysts this city has ever seen? You've been supposedly working with Eraserhead for years? When did you even start? You can't honestly think that we believe you're, well, the real Kyoshi. Do your parents even know you're here this late on a school night? Izuku sighed and took out his laptop. He most certainly was not answering the question about his parents, but if they wanted him to show off, he could handle that. Setting the laptop on the only remaining clean spot on Tsukauchi's desk, Izuku pulled up a few programs and motioned for them to stand behind him. The first program was his text-to-speech program. Pick a hero or villain, anyone you want, preferably someone I haven't analysed yet. He watched Eraserhead chew on his lip and Tsukauchi sign at exasperation. Fine, Tsukauchi barked. Ectoplasm. Eraserhead finished. Full report. Izuku nodded. Eraserhead was usually concise, exact with what he wanted. Strengths, weaknesses, but a full report meant that he wanted everything Izuku could give him. Izuku turned back to his laptop and settled into the chair a little bit more before cracking his knuckles. This would be fun. He'd never shown off to anyone but May before. 3 hours later, Tsukauchi was eating his words. Izuku had shown them from the beginning to the end how he analysed people and quirks. It was a lengthy process that included a full public record review, employment and education history review, all news and media appearances and mentions review, and a combat and work review. There were, of course, assumptions and conclusions drawn from Izuku's own intelligence, but they were in a separate section of the report. Ectoplasm was actually an easy target for him, since he didn't have as big of a file for most people. He didn't have as big as a file for most people. Izuku analysed for Eraserhead. 3 hours was a short work session. When he was done, Izuku turned the laptop and tapped Eraserhead on the shoulder. The man was half dozing in his chair. Tsukauchi was sitting on his chair with his head in his hands. He'd been in that position for the past hour. All done? Eraserhead asked. Izuku nodded and motioned to the file. He knew that since Eraserhead worked at UA like Ectoplasm, most of what was found in that file would be common knowledge to the underground hero. But Izuku managed to find a few bits that might surprise even him. Good work, kiddo. I think you've proved your point and your identity. I'm pretty sure he approved that 2 hours ago, Eraser. Tsukauchi groaned. Hey, you're the one that wanted verification. Eraser, you cannot tell me that you believed this kid was Kyoshi when he walked into the room. Honestly, I had no preconceived notion of who or what Kyoshi was, so it wasn't hard to accept that he was some genius kid. Izuku didn't bother interrupting their conversation. He packed away his laptop and notepad and grabbed the file on his vigilante persona and put that in his bag as well. They likely had a few other copies, as well as a digital version. Izuku couldn't get rid of it without raising suspicions. While the two men hashed out their debate over Izuku's age, he ducked out of the office and grabbed a coffee from the machine off to the side. A couple of police officers looked at him weirdly, but didn't stop him. Once he mixed in some sugar, he left the station before Eraserhead or even Tsukauchi even noticed he was gone. Izuku was very good at going unnoticed, and sometimes that came in handy. Okay, got that in one shot yet again. I'm getting better at this somehow. I'm still stuttering, but hey, it's improvement. Anyway, that was chapter 3 of Seen and Not Heard by LitaCakes. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and make sure to take some time out of your day to relax. I know that you're probably all stressed out, and I'm guessing it's American exams, that's the word. American exams. And if you're going into exams, make sure to take about 20 minutes to relax yourself. I know it can be a very stressful time for you all, but anyway, make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see you all later. Bye.